Join us.
They used to call me Crazy Joe, but now they can call me Batman.
Well, welcome back to the Necro Zoo. I am Bones. And in this one, let's go ahead and add one more figure to my McFarlane DC Multiverse collection. Now this time we will be taking a look at Batman from Arkham City. Now, admittedly, I am not a big gamer, but I do appreciate the style and the games for what they are, the immersive playability, and all of the designs and everything that I've seen throughout the years have always been pretty interesting. Now we know McFarlane has released various figures. First you had Arkham Asylum, then you had some Arkham Knight figures, you had Deathstroke from Arkham Origins, Killer Croc, Titan Joker, the list goes on and on. But I actually do appreciate the figures and their style. Now this Batman does look rather sneaky in the packaging, but let's go ahead and take a closer look at it. But first, he does come with your standard black DC Multiverse stamp. Now, not really needed, but sometimes useful. He also comes with a data file card. On the front, you do have an image from the actual game. And on the back, you do have some information. Pretty sweet. Now he also comes with one accessory, and that is a grapnel gun. Now this is very reminiscent of the one that came with Arkham Knight, which is another cool figure released by McFarlane. But as far as accessories goes, this is pretty much it. Now, we have received various Batarangs from the actual game, and I do have those because I have picked up all of the figures. You have the original one from Arkham Asylum. That one looks really nice. You do have the folded up version that came with the same figure. And then you do have the Arkham Knight version, which is like a little bit more tech version of the same design. And finally, he does come with the 2 legs to build your Solomon Grundy. So I will be actually building this guy. I know the main thing about him is that he's not really huge, but I mean, he is actually more of a comic accurate sized Grundy, because in the comics he's not like a giant. But trust me, I do know that in the games he is like massive. So that was a pretty bad misstep by McFarlane. Who knows why these decisions were made, but it is what it is. It's the Grundy that we have, so I'm looking forward to building them. I do only have one other Solomon Grundy in my collection. And let's go ahead and take a closer look at him. Now, I don't think I've actually reviewed a Batman from the video games. I do own all of the versions, but I just never got around to reviewing them. So this is actually going to be the first time I look at the articulation. And since I am not too well versed in the games, I cannot talk a lot about the lore and which versions they are, but I can tell you how the figure looks and the good points and the bad points. So let's take a look at him. First impressions, he looks really good. The head is actually one of the best heads I've seen, regardless of what version it is, a comic, video game, movie. It just really looks like Batman. But the upper body is also very broad. Now you go down into the legs and it looks a little bit, spindly legs. Like they're very close to looking like really small. I mean, it just depends how you place him, because you can turn him and they are actually wide legs. They just do not really give off a lot of muscle tone. Now I'm not sure if he looks like that in the games or not, but this is just my, observations of him. But the upper body is actually really nicely sculpted, a lot of cool detail, and it actually looks like a classic Batman body type without going into the games and all that, so it looks really good. Let's take a look at the head. As I said before, awesome head sculpt. Love like the stern look of him. I love how they whited out the eyes because in all honesty, I'm not a big fan of like when characters have their pupils showing. It's just something about it. It doesn't give them like that mysterious look. So even with my Arkham Asylum one, I whited out the eyes, which I also ended up doing to the Arkham Knight one. It just gives it a better look and a more grittier look. I know it's not, accurate to the games probably, but to me it just looks better. When you don't see someone's eyes, it just gives them that, an otherworldly feel because you can't connect with them, through their eyes. So I just prefer that look to characters. And I even went ahead and did it to my Nightwing from Gotham Knights, and he just looks a lot cooler to me without his pupils showing. Just looks more, just something about it. It just looks more comic style than actually the video games. But it is an awesome head sculpt. The ears are a little bit long. They're like halfway between too long and too short. So they look really good. Even for swapping it onto other figures, it probably will work. Let's take a look at the articulation. Looks down slightly, but enough. Looks up pretty well. You got right to left. You can tilt his head for some attitude. Pretty sweet. Let's take a look at the waist articulation. You do have side to side. You got that full swivel range of motion at the waist. You got a lower waist swivel, an upper chest swivel. Can't twist him. Get him in some sweet poses. He actually does have a nice crunch. You'll see that even the upper chest cavity almost hits his belt. So surprisingly, he has a good forward crunch. And you can also lean him back. Get him in some intimidating poses. Let's take a look at the shoulder. If you lift up his cape, he does have a butterfly shoulder joint in there. You got full range of motion, up and down, front to back. Bicep swivel, pretty smooth. He is actually only single jointed, and it has a hard time of actually going the full 90 degrees. Not too sure how that will affect any poses or getting them into any cool action, fighting scenes and stuff like that. But the only thing I will say is that it's actually hard for me to not like this, even though it reduces the range of motion, because it just looks really clean and you don't have like that double jointed cut that a figure would actually usually have. And the way it dips into the bicep going into the forearms, it just looks more anatomically correct than when it has double jointed elbows. So I mean, as we all know, if you want more articulation, you break up the sculpt more. If you want less articulation, you could keep that kind of more proportioned, more clean lines, and just looks more appealing to the eye. Now you go down, more cool texture work, and the forearm gauntlets are sculpted out really nicely. Nice detail on the gloves. They actually added the knuckle dusters painted in with some high silver. He does have wrist articulation with a McFarlane ball joint, so you can swivel and hinge it. Let's take a look at the other side. Pretty much the same. You got the gauntlet blades there. Now what I will say is there is no actual metallic dusting on this one or wash, because I do remember that the Arkham Asylum one actually has a lot of metal washing on it. That way it looks more metallic. This one is more clean and just a solid black kind of satin look to it. He does have a T-pose. Now you can lift it up a little bit higher, but the cape does restrict it. But it's a clean T-pose. Let's go down to the waist. Pretty nice looking utility belt. Now this one is colored differently because I do remember the Arkham Asylum one being more of a gold finish, kind of bronze even, and this one is kind of like a dull yellow. Going down into the legs, well, let's take a look at his thigh swivel first. It It's there, but it is minimal. Can't get too much really out of it. But he can kick up really high. And he can kick back even higher. This is allowed by the rubber in the trunks to give you more range of motion. You can pop out his leg, bend his knee, and he does have that sweet hip swivel. Double jointed knees look actually pretty good. Straighten them out. Kind of restricted going up, but he does have down movement at the ankle. Right to left. Rocker. Toe articulation. Before we go, let's take a look at the legs now. This is one thing I noticed right away. His legs are kind of slender, very minimal muscle tone to them. Like I said, I don't know if in the game that's how he looks, but this is how it looks in my hand. But you do have cool piping lines, and the boots are sculpted out really beautifully. But once again, they do not have any paint to accent all of the little buckles and texture that it has, so it is kind of lacking in that. But for a normal standard Batman, it actually looks really good. Take a look at him from the bottom. Kind of waffle tread there underneath the boots, going up the back. Nice buckles on the back of the boots, piping lines going into the belt in the back. It does go fully around, and then you have this cape. Pretty soft and pliable cape. Not too bad. It does have a kind of swoosh here on one side, I guess because he'll be like on top of buildings or flying down, so that works. Back of the cowl looks really nice. It has that like neck piece on top of the cape that goes into the actual cowl. Looks really good. So not too bad for my first time that actually looking at all the detail in an actual Arkham Batman. But we do know we have had other versions. Now I'm gonna bring out my Arkham Asylum one, and I did actually repaint his eyes. I whited them out. This one really had like a derpy look to it with the pupils, and he just looks a little bit more menacing and just gives him a little bit more of a gritty look with those eyes whited out. Now his ears are really long. Does have a different cape. And of course you could see all the washes on here. Now they're actually a little bit different. The chest emblem is different. The bat emblem is different on him. He does not have the knuckle dusters painted in, but there just is a little bit more metallic wash to him. So they both have their own cool look. Just it looks like version 1 here and then version 2. It's what it kind of looks like, but they both have their selling points, so that's pretty nice. Now I also do have the Arkham Knight Batman version. Now this guy is really armored up. I mean, he just has so much plating and pads, and the belt is completely different. This guy looks really like next level final form Batman. But I also did color in his eyes, and it just gives him a more powerful look. Just, if you see that in the night, you'll be more terrified than to actually see like his eyes. That's just what it does for me. I just like to see him like that with the whited out eyes. And you know how this could really be shown is like, let's take my Batman 1000 with the custom oval, and the head has always been like kind of iffy on that Batman, and it was McFarlane's first Batman figure. But if you take this Arkham City head and put it on there, it just gives it a completely different feel, just like a more grimier Batman and tougher. And the oval also gives him like a little bit more throwback feel to the comics. So I really liked that head swap. It looks really nice. And I've always looked for a different head to put on that alternate version of Batman that I actually have. And I don't know, I might have found actually the head that I want to put with that one. Now, something else I wanted to do just, for shits and giggles was I wanted to swap out the legs a little bit because they just look really slender for the Batman. So the first thing I did is I actually swapped out the legs with the Arkham Knight version, even though they're more like armored up and padded. I just feel like they're a little bit thicker to like compensate the way the upper body is wider and the legs don't look so gangly. And sure enough, it does look okay. I mean, it doesn't look completely good because the two versions of the Batsuit are completely different. One is more tactical and armored, and one is a little bit more slimmed down and simplified. But it does have a better look. And then just for fun, I wanted to throw on the three Jokers Batman legs because those are notoriously long, and just to even out, you know, the upper body proportions. And this actually looks really good, even though there's no like texturing or piping line in the legs. The color actually matches, and it just gives them a more full body aesthetic look to this Batman figure. To me, it's just more pleasing to the eye. But in the end, I just, you know, put everything back the way it was, because this guy actually does have a little bit of character to him, and it does kind of grow on you when you move him around and put him in different poses. You could put the different Batarang one, the closed version or the open version, and it just, you know, gives him a little bit more style. And like I said, the head is one thing that is really awesome on this figure. So actually, in my final thoughts, really nice looking figure. Don't know how close it is to the actual game version of him, but it does seem kind of reminiscent of the Arkham Asylum version that was released. But if you guys are big fans of the games and you need another Batman, now one main reason I did pick this guy up is I am going to build the Solomon Grundy, so I do have to get all of these figures, which will be coming up pretty soon. Anyways, you guys keep hunting out there, keep collecting, keep customizing, and I will see you on the next one.